Good morning. Check this out. My daughter made this coaster. It's actually a pot holder and I turned it into a coaster. Pretty cool, huh? Today is a big day for me. Here's why. One of the things I look forward to the most is football practice. And I'm not playing, obviously, but even when I was playing, I actually enjoyed practice. I was not one of these who just dreaded it all the time. I really like practice. Okay, and now as a sports talker, I get to be an analyst for one team, my team, Mississippi State. When practice starts, it usually affords the opportunity to go, and there's just something, it's just in my blood. I have to see it. I have to go to some football practice. You know, it's like an addiction. So whenever it kicks back up every year, I get really pumped up about it. But this year's different. Everybody's got to kind of keep their distance right now, and that is absolutely the right thing to do. But what's cool is all the SEC teams, some do a better job than others, but all of them pretty much provide practice footage and post-practice interviews and all this kind of stuff via video. And they provide it for media, not for fans, not for just everybody, but for certain media if you request it and you get that information, where you can actually log in and download that stuff and access it. And I've been doing that. Mississippi State, this was interesting. Somebody sent me a text overnight and they had broken down, they had looked at the new roster for Mississippi State and broken down how many people are on the roster at each position. You look at defensive backs, there's a lot of those. You got 14 safeties on the roster, 11 corners on the roster. And the good news is that in the cornerback group, one of those is a senior and 3 of those are a junior. So you do actually have some upperclassmen at a position people are kind of worried about Mississippi State. Now the key is who they are and are they going to play. Some of your most talented guys, maybe your youngest guys, like on the defensive front, they're going to be primarily a 3-man defensive front. So a lot of times you're only going to have one defensive lineman on the field, true defensive lineman. But they list 6 defensive tackles on the roster, which seems like not very many, but none of them are upperclassmen. There are no juniors, there are no seniors at defensive tackle. Now at defensive end, it's totally different. You got 9 defensive ends, 2 seniors, 3 juniors, and they'll be on the field a lot because again, you're in a 3-man front. 26 wide receivers on the roster. They've brought in a bunch, they've transferred a bunch, therefore they have 8 juniors, there are 5 seniors. So 13 upperclassmen out of 26 wide receivers already on the roster at Mississippi State. And by the way, thanks Trey, sending me that text. I wouldn't have gone through the time to add all that up. Phil Steele, he picked, they predicted Mississippi State near the bottom of the Western Division. Here's a stat for you. Drastic change because of Mike Leach. Mississippi State ran the ball 63% of the time last year. Mike Leach threw it 77% of the time at Washington State. Something's got to give.
This is probably the most competitive and demanding schedule in the history of college football. Not just for us, but for our whole conference, you know. I mean, if there's ever been an era, a day, a time where there's been a more competitive schedule, a more demanding schedule, than what we have this season in the SEC for all the teams involved. I'd be curious which one that is.
You know, one of the teams that is very talented, recruits at a really high level, but lost a ton, LSU. So many guys to the draft. A whole bunch of them went early. Not only that, it's Joe Burrow. You know, what kind of drop-off do you have there? Miles Brennan may be really good, but it's hard to imagine him putting up Joe Burrow numbers this year.
Yeah, it's been crazy. I mean, yeah, starting with 2017 and with the coaching change, that's bound to happen in this business. I committed under Les and Coach Cameron, and then they ended up getting fired, coming in with Coach Canada, and then a year later he's gone, and then, Coach Insmere comes in and brings his offense, and then Coach Brady brings his offense, and then here we are. And then COVID gets in the way, but all that's just going to prepare me to be a better person in the end and to be stronger. And without adversity, I don't think, I'd be as strong as I am today. So it's just another speed bump in the road, but I'm more than capable and confident that we can all get through it.
And Joe Brady's gone, so much of what made up that team is gone, replacing a whole bunch of guys and coaches, and they're trying to replace all that production in the middle of a pandemic when you haven't had a spring practice and a normal offseason. And now there's this tremendous controversy going back to the Darius Geis thing that includes potentially Coach O that's kind of hanging over him a little bit. So you wonder how they're going to handle all that. And Phil Steele in his magazine actually predicted them third in the SEC West behind Alabama and Texas A&M at number 2. And he said it. Nobody's going to argue that LSU was the top team last year. Obviously, they lose an amazing 14 players to the NFL draft, including the Heisman quarterback. Naturally, they will take a step back, and they will. And so when it came out, it's a huge task. State is not going to be given much of a chance to go to LSU and actually win in week 1. But if you're going to have a chance, then right out of the gate is the best time to catch them. Ole Miss is going to be improved. 2 reasons. 1, Lane Kiffin. He's a good coach. Knows how to get the offense in the end zone. He's just going to do it. And then number 2, they have a ton of experience coming back. Now you go, well, is experience a good thing if it comes back from teams that they weren't any good? I mean, they were a 4-win team last year. But they have 73 lettermen returning on their team. So if you were to go, if it's just scholarship guys, 73 guys out of 85 scholarship guys who are returning that have played for you before. Everybody else in the league is around, 43, 44, 45 returning lettermen. And that's okay, but this is a team that's got 73, the most of any SEC team, of returning people who've played football for you before. And I think that accounts for something. New coach, get energized, a lot of experience back, a lot of guys who've contributed, and they're going to want to win some games. And, I think veterans are going to make it through this pandemic stuff better than new guys will. So I think that may help them to be an improved football team. And John Rice Plumlee, I think he'll be a part of their team, whether he's an every down quarterback or not for them, I don't know. But this I do know. Lane Kiffin did a great job with Blake Sims at Alabama, a converted running back who became at the time, their all-time single-season passing leader. Nobody thought Blake Sims was even capable of that. Lane Kiffin coached him up to that. If he can do that with Blake Sims, he can do some stuff with John Rice Plumlee.
Do you find that you are repping the passing game more right now?
Absolutely. And I think everybody's really excited about it, to get a little bit more variety, to the offense. I feel like last year sometimes we could be one-dimensional, but I think this upcoming year that we are going to turn some heads for sure.
In the SEC East, everybody's talking about Georgia. Everybody's talking about Florida, and rightfully so. Georgia, uber talented. They're up there with Alabama. The numbers of 4s and 5 stars and that kind of thing. Florida trying to catch them. Got one of the best coaches in the country in Dan Mullen. But nobody's really talking about Tennessee. And guess what? They're coming. I've always said that the SEC is more fun when Tennessee is good. It just is. It just makes it more interesting, more fun when Tennessee's good. They were an 8-5 team last year, and they kind of scratched out that 8 wins. But 8 wins is 8 wins. They weren't explosive, necessarily consistent, or just ooh and ah you with their offense. But they figured it out, 8 wins, and they returned so much off that team. Jeremy Pruitt is doing a good job there. He seems to just kind of have that glue about him. You watch what that team went through last year and how they responded to it. You could tell they're doing something right. He's doing something right. And they returned 17 starters on that team, 8 on defense, 9 starters on offense, including both their quarterbacks who played for them last year. So, and 51 returning lettermen, more than most other SEC teams. They're veteran. They're coached well. They were happy and excited after what they did last year. Return a bunch of those guys off an 8-win team. Tennessee's going to break a few hearts this year. They are.
We've got 24 more practices to help develop our team. We'll start focusing on South Carolina as we get closer to that time. But Coach Muschamp, to me, has always done a fantastic job. He's hired Mike Bobo to be his offensive coordinator, who's a good friend of mine. But right now, we need to focus on us.
Can you tell I'm excited that practice has begun? Thanks for watching. See you next time.